Hello and welcome to this second 4it techELITE session on remote engagement. These techELITE events provide a non-commercial forum for thought leadership and exchange of ideas in the world of digital IT and business change. And today we'll be looking again at the vitally important issue of engaging the interest and ensuring the participation of people in remote meetings, which, even though the immediacy of the COVID emergency is over, are very much here to stay. Our speakers again this evening are Martin Simmons, Senior Business Analyst at Red Vesper, and Paul Hickman, Strategic BA and a BA Graduate Leader at NatWest Bank. Together, they will impart further techniques to help avoid bland, uninspiring online meetings and instead deliver the Michelin-starred experience we would all like to expect. This session will again invite your participation. So please do make free use of the chat functionality. The speakers will see what you say as you say it. So I'll hand over now and welcome back Martin and Paul.
Cool, thank you, John. Good to have a few people back again today, and good to have the opportunity to share with you some more insights on online engagement. I will be sharing my screen, and John, if you could kindly share the link to the slide deck. So for people who haven't seen this before, rather than do a show and tell, we invite you to collaborate with us on the slide. So we've already got a slide deck ready. It's got open access. If you ever try this in your organization, you just need to make sure you share it and you have a backup. But the point of it is about co-authoring, getting people involved, making it interactive, and hopefully learning a bit along the way. So for myself, this kind of came about from one or two fairly kind of dull meetings where somebody went through the show and tell. At the end of it said, do we all agree? Or do you understand? That's kind of, you might have heard that before. And so it's kind of, how do we overcome that? How do we make it so that I'm involved all the way through and not kind of quiet at the end? Something that kind of struck me recently, and it links to the kind of Michelin star thing, is around service. And if we look at the hospitality industry, why do you think people do not return to a restaurant? And I've kind of given you the hint on the answer there, and feel free to put it in the chat, but why do you think people would not, why would you not go back to somewhere that you've eaten before? Paul, I'll give you an opportunity for a shout out there. What do you reckon?
Bad service, bad quality product, if you want to call it that. Not getting the experience that you thought you would get, that you were told beforehand. And one of the big ones, and I'm seeing a couple of the chats come through that resonate with this. You've been to a place a few times, you've got this level of expectation that's been set, and if that expectation's been set really high, and then it's just delivered a little bit under, you go, oh, I've had a bad time, when really some of them other places that you go to don't have that level of expectation that high. So, you know, expectation high and delivery just as high, and then that one time when it doesn't happen for whatever reason, all of a sudden you think, oh, it's really bad, it's really letting me down. So
yeah,
and you know, do you hold people to that, or do you give them a chance?
Yeah, and I guess there's other factors in there about, you know, if it's more local, you might come back. But if we look at, I think it was Issue Tracker did this research on, and the number one reason was indeed service, which, as I say, I alluded to before, and you commented there. You know, bad food and things, people might forgive it, but if someone's been rude to you, or they've just not been attentive, whatever it might be, we don't tend to come back. Now, in a work context, you're going to come back, aren't you? Because that's who's paying your bills. But realistically, do you want to come back? If you've got somebody who's double booking you in a meeting and they want you there, which meeting are you going to choose? And if you find yourself in a situation where you're not going to get the most value, are you going to give your all in that meeting? Are you going to turn up wanting to be engaged and interactive? So I think we can take something from that kind of service mentality. You may have seen servant leadership before, but here we're just purely talking about making sure people feel welcome, they're engaged, that they want to be there and they want to come back. So something to take from that industry, and just think about how do we apply that to our meetings to make sure people feel like they're part of it. And so that's where I'm coming from today. about how to make sure we're engaged in meetings. Now, Paul probably has a different slant, being from the kind of banking sector. So maybe, Paul, you introduce yourself and...
Yeah. So hi guys, welcome back. Yes, my career, a long career, has been in corporate world, in banking, and you know, there are a lot of repetitive meetings. It's a heavily governed industry, and there are a lot of risks that need to be discussed and understood, and then either treated or tolerated. You know, and that doesn't just happen by accident and by chance. It's by well-planned and well-executed meetings with the right stakeholders and the right decision makers being present. That has been the world that I've had a very successful career in. And if that's a world that you exist in as a member of the audience, and I'm sorry we can't see you, and we can't, you can post in chat and we'll see your chat to engage with. But if that's something that resonates with you, you know, you will know that you can be in a situation where you would be in a regular meeting, a risk update meeting, let's say, every week with the same 37 people on. That is an hour, and you've been there for 5 weeks and none of the risks have moved forward. 35 people times by 1 hour times by 4 or 5 weeks is a lot of time equals cost equals money being spent on a talking shop rather than closing down and progressing risks, issues, journey management, whatever it is the meeting is about. So yeah, I come at it from a get the most out of your meetings, get people the right people engaged as quickly as possible to get to the answer that's needed in the shortest time possible, because that stops us all getting double and triple booked in meetings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so hopefully people are getting two angles there. Yeah, the kind of human side and then the kind of the true kind of ROI benefit side. I think that kind of allows us to go on to the next exercise. And I'm not sure how, if people are in the document. I can't quite see anybody in there at the minute. So John's just posted a link. Do join us in that document and we'll go on to slide 2. If you're not able to, feel free to put things in the chat and Paul can add those into the document. But yeah, Paul, maybe you just lead us on that next exercise and then we'll do the kind of intro into everything else.
Oops. Okay, I'm moving around on my screen trying to go to the session. It's not loading.
In fact, I will show my screen there so we can see that as well. Okay, so yeah, slide 1, we're just doing a bit of an intro there. There's a link in the chat, and now we're on slide 2, and we're just going to have a quick look at what are you looking for from this session.
I think we're on the wrong screen, Martin. I can see the browser.
Okay, my apologies all. Is that any better?
Perfect.
Cool, thanks all for the patience there. So yeah, I guess the question for us all here is in the chat or on the slide deck, you can see the sticky notes here. And this is that thing I said about co-authoring, getting people involved. And first things first is finding out what people want from the session. So when you turn up to that meeting, making sure that the audience, especially if you're the host, are there for the same reasons that you are, because you can have some expectations, they can have some different ones. It's so important to get that right at the start and not just jump straight into the agenda. So that's what we'll do now. Just have a quick think about what you're looking for from this session, and we'll try and make sure that that's included as we go. I've got a timer going for about 30 seconds here. So if we all go quiet for a moment, embrace the silence, take it as a moment to think. Don't worry about that. And it's something I advocate in all meetings. Give people a chance to think and reflect. So apologies for speaking again. I'll just give it another 20 seconds. Perfect. So yeah, that silence, it's quite useful to ask a provocative question or to ask something to bring it in, and just give people a moment, and make sure you say to people, look, we are going to have that 30 seconds, that minute to be quiet and think about this, because you will get people wanting to fill the silence. So it's important that you kind of set that expectation that we are going to go quiet for a quick moment. Any thoughts there, Paul?
No, I'm looking at the post-its coming in. There's nothing coming in on chat on GoToWebinar, but if you can add your information onto the post-it notes on Google Slides, that would be fantastic. I quite like that more around using silence. I think it's a technique that isn't used a lot in the corporate world, and that's quite interesting in itself, how people want to fill that space and don't allow time for reflectors to do their bit, which is extremely useful. But yeah, build on last week's tips, some help on tooling.
Yes. Yep. There is a topic on tooling, so that should be one we can potentially cover. Right, I'm going to come off the screen sharing just for a moment, because I want to take us through an exercise. Now, last week we did this imagination exercise where we kind of imagined ourselves in a restaurant, and we put ourselves there mentally so that we could refresh, relax, and make sure that we're present in the moment. And it was about switching off from everything we've done before, through our kind of meditative mindset, to be present and to be here. Now, today we're going to do something slightly different. And this is something we picked up from another business analysis forum. And if you're in front of a monitor, or if you've got kind of a picture or something in the room, what I want you to do is just look at the top left corner of it. Sorry if I'm pointing to the top right, it's just a camera. But look at the top left, and then what I want you to do is trace your eyes from left to right across the top of it, breathing in. All the time that you're looking from left to right, you're going to breathe in. When you get to the end, to the top right, you're going to just, again, follow the eyes down to the bottom right of the screen, just kind of holding your breath for that time. Obviously, make sure you're looking at a decent speed. When you get to the bottom right, you're going to exhale. So you're going to go from the bottom right to the bottom left of the picture or the screen, exhaling. So you've gone in, you've held it, you've gone out, and then, of course, we're going to go back to the top left, again, just holding it. So this is meant to be a breathing exercise, just to help us wash away all that kind of stress and make sure that we're here in the moment. So I'll just do that myself. And please do join me, because this is a chance for us to, we've been in a busy day, we've had all those back-to-back meetings. This is a chance for us just to make sure that we're present, make sure that all those good or bad things that have happened, they're in the past, and we're here. We're here to focus on this session. So starting with the top left. And I'm at the bottom right. And there you go, I'm in the top left again. So fairly quick, a nice quick exercise. And if someone sends you an email that's kind of you're a bit against, or if someone says something in the meeting, then pick that spot, do that breathing exercise. You know, it's a 5, 10, 15-second exercise for you to do. If you've got dual screen, then look quickly. But yeah, making sure that you give yourself an extra moment to do that and to resettle yourself. So that's something. Another exercise, which I won't actually do, is around just moving your body a bit. So you can start by wiggling your toes, wiggling your ankles, then your knee, moving through to your hips and to your fingers and your arms, through to your neck and your head. So if you just spent kind of 30 seconds a minute, just as I say, just kind of doing that, jazz hands, whatever it might be, it's just getting your blood going again, getting you moving. And again, if you're feeling a bit tired or whatever it might be, it's just making sure that you've actually moved a few muscles and refreshed yourself. So 2 things you can do there to make sure at the start of the meeting everyone's present and everybody's focusing and able to reset from everything else that's gone in the past in the day. Even if it's first thing in the morning, people might still need that chance because they've come from a busy house, or they've had a bit of a journey, or they're just they've gone from one room to another in the house and they just need to make sure that they're switching on. So a couple of things there to have a go at. With that in mind, we're able to go to slide 3. So I will show my screen again, hopefully showing the right one this time. There we go, yep. And on slide 3, if you'll join me there, we've got the votes. Last time we did increasing the value of meetings. Now we've got another 4 to choose from. Whoever picked tools and techniques as their preferred option, you can see which one to pick there. For everybody else, then yeah, take your pick. I'll just go silent for 30 seconds, drag a dot and put it over the one that you want. We can explain a bit more once you've chosen. I don't want to cause a bias. And again, if you're not in the slide deck, then put it in the chat and we will drag the dot for you. I'll just give you a few seconds to do that. So on slide 3, we're dragging a dot over the topic that we want to go through today. And if we get a tie, then I might flip a coin. I think that's us. So heads is a menu selection, not that you can see. Tails is turning a bad experience around. So tails, we're going to do a bit of turning a bad experience around, but because of where we're at today, don't worry, we will do both. So stick with us. We'll do the turning a bad experience around first, and then we'll go to the interactive tools and techniques, and we can see how they apply and how we're going to use them. Have we got any thoughts so far, Paul, before we go into the exercise?
No, nothing through on chat, so it looks like the audience is in eager anticipation.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody, for being involved. So on exercise, identifying and fixing meeting issues. So this came about when we started talking about things aren't quite going right. First of all, how do we recognize it? And then what do we do about it? Because it's very easy to kind of sit back, see it not going right, and either be a bit unaware or kind of just say it's probably not something that I need to get involved in, and it'll sort itself out and these sorts of things. So we want to be a bit more proactive with this, and things can go right or wrong in a meeting at any moment. They can, and it often, if we're honest, starts before the meeting even commences. We look at things like the agenda missing or the wrong people in the meeting. So that's a couple of examples for this exercise we're about to do. What I'd like for you to do is take a post-it. It doesn't have to be color coordinated, but we're looking at the signs that a meeting isn't quite going to plan, that it's not quite right. So to do that, we're taking the personas, which if you've worked in an agile world is where that comes from. What do we see and hear? What do we feel? And what do we do when a meeting isn't going well? So we'll just take the post-its again. I'm going to go quiet for another 60 seconds or so. Another example, we'll give the exercise out, let people think, go silent, and ask everyone else to. So what do we see, hear, feel, and do in bad meetings when meetings are not going well? And I'm going to put a timer on now and go quiet. So once again, we're just on slide 8 there. We're just having a look at what we see, hear, feel, and do in bad meetings, when meetings are not going well. So just write on your last one there and I'll reveal a few thoughts. But before I do, let's just call a couple of things out here. Definitely, if you're in Zooms back to back, then you'll see people yawning, you'll see them feeling, you personally will start to feel tired, you'll start to feel like you can't concentrate. So it's really important, back to the exercises before, if that happens, we're doing something just to reconnect. And also, hopefully you notice that I'm trying to reintroduce what we're doing constantly. So you'll have heard me say 2 or 3 times there that we're on slide 8, that we are doing this exercise about see, hear, feel, do. And we're focusing on that just now. So if anybody did get distracted or anybody had a moment where they were just looking at something else, then they're empowered to come back into the room to where we're at without feeling like they've missed anything. So taking those moments just to come back and remind people what we're doing in this moment in time and what we're looking for. So we can call that out. Yeah, definitely distractions. But we need to remember, by the way, distractions are a part of home working, and we can't just say don't be distracted. We can't force people to not answer the door or look after pets and children and things like that. That's unacceptable. So what we need to do is make sure that people can come back in and recognize those distractions are not always a bad thing, that they don't want to be there. It's just a matter of life, and we need to handle that and make sure people feel like they can come back in without being alienated or without feeling like they're struggling. And yeah, we see a lot of certainly see a lot of people speaking over. So today's post-it notes and sticky notes are a good example of giving everybody equal power to have their say. Rather than having one person with the loudest voice, everybody has a post-it. Everyone can put what they want in. Hopefully getting a bit of more diverse thinking, hopefully getting a few more ideas out there that we wouldn't otherwise have. So giving you all an equal voice, making sure that those interruptions are reduced. And if you do have people speaking over, then make sure you go back to that, ask them to reflect and take a minute before they speak. A good tip is just to say, look, anybody, before you come up with something, just have 30 seconds, 60 seconds. Don't worry, we'll come back to it. And what I've not said yet is we've got a car park on slide 13. So if somebody is continuously doing that, you can always introduce the car park on a electronic format where you say to someone, could you just put that idea on the backside? We will make sure we come to it at the end. So that's a nice segue for me to say, same to everyone here. Feel free to use that car park at the end to ask any questions if you're not using the chat at the minute. Anything stand out for yourself, Paul?
I see the alienated comment smack bang in the middle of the screen, and disengaged, alienated, kind of the same thing. If you are not giving everybody an equal voice in your meetings, then of course they're going to feel alienated and become disengaged. And depending on how your culture is inside your organization, there are methods to address that. We can't see people's faces, unfortunately, on GoToWebinar, but some companies have people that have to show their video on Zoom, so you can do the traditional scan the room like you would if you were physically present. This one doesn't. So we, as hosts and co-hosts of this webinar, cannot see if a person is engaged or disengaged, cannot see if they're playing on their phone, doing something else, doing the laundry, doing the washing whilst listening to a call on an evening. But there are other methods that you can apply to see if you have that engagement. And Martin's busy running through how to show online engagement, allowing people to move post-it notes and add post-it notes anonymously. It's not named, you don't know who is who, and that is leveling the playing field. So you shouldn't end up with any of that disengagement or people feeling alienated. That's the big one that stands out for me. That usually is what makes a bad meeting, to be fair, is the disengagement.
Yeah, and I guess there's all sorts of kind of root causes to that. And the three things that I've just pulled up at the bottom of slide 8 there are things that we can consider to handle this situation. So Paul, you've alluded there to making it interactive and the sticky notes. But what I've tried to do here is say before, during, and after a meeting, what can we do? So we see these signs. That's my first ask of you today. It's to really think about what are the signs there, and how am I going to remember those in my next meeting? So when you're in a meeting, if you kind of get a feeling that people are being distracted, especially if cameras are on, or if you feel like one person's talking over, remember what we're talking about today. Take that away and think, right, what am I going to do about that in the future or in the here and now? So the point of calling out those signs is to register and kind of whatever signs you see in the meeting, make sure you're taking note of them and make sure you're thinking about, right, how can I help with that? And once you've got that, then we can do this before, during, and after. So before the meeting, as we're doing for the attention of our audience, we want to make sure the format of the meeting is right. So before the meeting, if we've got an agenda with 5 bullet points, is that what we really want for a one-on-one meeting, or do we want it to be more flexible and able to just to and fro based on what the other person's looking for? Likewise, if we've got kind of an exam situation, or if we've got that kind of certification or an audit, then does it need to be really rigid and going through set criteria? Have we got that format? Have we got all the detail that we need? And then have we got the attendees, especially where we've got decision makers needed? If we've got people delegating or we've not got everybody there, then we're not going to make the decisions we need to make. So make sure that before we've got the format right, the attendees, and everyone is agreed on the outcomes we're trying to achieve. So if I send a meeting invite saying the goal of this meeting is whatever it might be, then everyone's quite clear on that. If anybody's got a different idea, then they're very welcome to bring that up. If I don't state something like that, or the objective of the meeting, then it's easy for everyone to have different interpretations. So at the start of this meeting, we asked you what you're looking for from it. That's us asking for your outcomes. That's something that we can do with that, but make sure we do that before the meeting or right at the start of it. Then during the meeting, when we see these signs, there's the old pirates, this isn't going well. So when we do that, reflect, refocus, and get the roles right. So to reflect, you can always just say to people, look, where's this going wrong? What can we do better? Giving people a chance to say, how have we got to the position that we're in? Feel free to have that vulnerability and open up the question. And then to refocus, we say, well, what can we do next? How do you want to approach the next bit instead? So if it's not going right, then don't just carry on as it is. Take a moment to reflect on how you've got to where you are, and then refocus onto what you're going to do next. And then finally, I really like this idea of roles, where then there's an article on the Red Vespa site, shameless plug, but on how can we use meeting roles to enhance the interactive and engagement of the meeting. So what I mean by that is we're all aware of the host, the co-host, and the attendee. That's a really kind of small set of roles. What about things like the disruptor or the innovator or the scribe? We even had, I think, in one of our workshops, the wallflower and things like that. And what are those roles in the meeting? If we recognize all the different roles, can we apply them? You might have heard of the 6-hat model. So that's the sort of thing we're talking about here. If you ask a certain question, or if you say to somebody, I would like you in this meeting to be a reflector, somebody who's quite outspoken. So I'm giving you the role of reflector. And what you need to do as a reflector is whenever someone says something, you need to take 30 seconds to think about what they've said and then pitch it back to them as you've heard it, giving them that opportunity. So I'm explaining what the role entails to be successful and giving somebody who's outspoken that, so that they're not taking over the meeting and they're not just kind of shouting over, they're actually giving ideas back. So yeah, reflect and refocus and offer different roles. Think about how you can get people to think differently. And then finally, after the meeting, we need to adapt. So we need to make sure that we're learning during the meeting what worked, what didn't work. We're getting that feedback from people and asking for it as well. Make sure you go and ask for the feedback to make sure that we can figure out what went wrong, why other people thought it went wrong. Everyone's got a perspective. And then be transparent about what you're going to do about it. We write actions for a reason. We make them visible, everyone can see, but do that with the notes, do that with what the lessons are from the meeting. Make sure we're sharing that so that people feel like there's something being acted on it, so next time it's even better, and then people want to come back. So I've rushed through that a little bit, and I hope that's not been too much to take on, but we've effectively looked at what are the signs of a meeting not going to plan, and then how can we deal with it before the attention of, during the it's not quite going right, our 3 R's, and then after, the after, what can we do? So how's that all sounding so far to everybody? Oh, Paul, what are you thinking there?
Yeah, we're asking the audience how they feel. Put it in chat if you can, because I know you can't come off mute and talk to us. But usually you can spot meetings that are more likely to have problems, and that's in the before stage. So if you got your work, nobody has their work calendar still up at 6:30 at night, do they? Tomorrow morning, look at your work calendar and have a look at the meetings. Those meetings that don't have an agenda, those meetings that don't have an outcome or a desired outcome stated, ask back to the meeting organizer and ask to be confident and say, what are you expecting as an outcome from this meeting? What are you expecting me as a participant to bring to this meeting? Don't just turn up because you've been invited. You might not be the right person to have been invited, but the person hasn't done their homework. So you can take that ownership. And so there are things that you can do, and I'm trying to give practical takeaways for people to take. Now, during a meeting, that takes a lot of confidence, practice, unfortunately, usually learning the hard way. I wish I'd done something different in retrospect, and then you apply your learning the next time. So the during, there are some very clear tips. Martin focused on the roles. We've been asking people to be contributors by adding their text to a post-it note. That is changing your role from a passive listener to content to an active contributor of content. So, there are methods that can be applied. As Martin says, shameless plug, go to the site, there's lots of information on that. The after bit, I think, is the biggest takeaway for everybody. As I say, it's difficult to have the confidence or be in the right position at the right time to change a meeting during. That's utopia. That's the perfect world. Usually the after, in hindsight, I wish I had done this differently. That's the adaptation. There is nothing wrong. Everybody has bad meetings. Some people run bad meetings until they've ran them a while and then they get a bit better. That's life. Don't take it to heart. You can change afterwards for your next meeting. And if you are running a meeting and you don't have any outcomes set and you haven't set the agenda, then maybe tomorrow go back through your diary and add them in. You're the person who's asking for people's time. Give them a chance to give you those outcomes quicker than you would have got after 3 or 4 meetings. Get them in 1 or 2. So I'm just trying to bring some practical examples of how you can take this work away.
Fantastic, that, Paul. Thank you. And that kind of nicely leads us on, actually, doesn't it, for a bit of a pause for thought moment. Once again, introducing the silence. I'm going to put a timer on, and I'd like for you all to think for maybe 30 seconds, a minute, what of everything we've said there might you apply to your next meeting? What one thing you're going to take away and try and work on? And bear in mind, we've gone through the signs, we've gone through before, during, and after a meeting, but we also spoke about co-authoring, about slides, about silence, about the first 5 minutes and getting people to be present in a meeting. So we've gone through a few different things beyond that side at the end. So have a think about which one thing, or which few things if you're feeling brave, but which one thing are you going to apply to your next meeting and give a try to, because that's the key for today. If you can take one thing away and learn and try it out, then you might be able to generate some change. So I'll put a timer on and I'll go quiet for 30 seconds or so. Just have a think, even write it down for yourself. What one thing you're going to try? So just drawing that to a close there, slide 9, how might you apply this to your next meeting? Sorry, I just realized I wasn't sharing the screen all the way through that. So just as a quick recap there for the camera and everything, before, during, and after, and what we see here for you'll do. Hopefully you've got a few ideas there to take away. Put them in the chat if you've got anything to add there. I think that gives us an opportunity, because we're about halfway through there, to go through the next exercise, which I'm really keen to show everybody, because this is getting into the real tools and techniques and the things that you can really try out that are quite tangible. So that's on slide 7. So if you would kindly join Paul and myself on slide 7, we can have a look at some of the tools and techniques. And here, one of the key things that I quite like to think about here is not everybody has access to all of the tools. Not everybody is educated and trained in using all the tools. So the key premise that we're going to try and get across here is use the tools you've got. if everybody in your company is used to PowerPoint, if you've all been using it since the 90s and you know, kind of gotten used to it, then all we're asking to do is could use it in a different way, but use the same tool. If people are quite advanced and they're using the likes of Mural and Miro, then can they take the time at the start of the meeting to bring others on board and make sure they're feeling confident in using the tool and not too kind of removed and like they're not part of it. So the key thing we're going to get across here is all other tools can do the same things in varying degrees of quality and whatnot with so think about your audience, think about what would work best for them when it comes to tools and techniques. And we've got some examples to work through here. So let's start off with the PowerPoint. In fact, go and Paul.
Yeah, let me, so your screen is still showing the pause for thought slide to me. So I assume it's still showing that to everybody. Yeah, drop it and restart. There we go.
Oh, I've lost my entire thing now. Okay, that's fine. It's fine. We can carry on talking through those. So if you're in that slide deck, I assume the slide deck's still okay for yourself, Paul.
Oh, it's coming back.
Okay, that's okay. So we've got the exercises here, and the first slide exercise, when we can get to it, is going to be using what we've already seen here. So we've seen the post-it notes, and we've seen that interactive way of using that on a slide deck. So what we've done is drawn up a interactive slide deck. I'll see if I can get the link in a second to get people thinking about how do we improve our meetings, what are the signs of it going well, and what are the blockers and that sort of thing. So we'll see if we can introduce all of that in a second. If you can just bear with us through this. See if we can get that. And whilst I'm kind of trying to get that loaded, what I want you to think about here again is, what would it look like for you if you did one slide? So next time you're in a meeting, you're trying to get everybody to ideate and come up with ideas, rather than kind of just having the kind of conversational aspect of it, which is useful. We're not trying to say no to that. How might you use a slide deck like this to get you going with that, and to think about how you might make it more interactive? How might you use your post-its? What questions would you ask? So just think about that kind of design and what you might do. So I'll go silent for 30 seconds while I have a look at how to get this loaded, but have a think about how would you use those post-its and what would you put on them? So in the chat there, Richard, could you kindly, let's see, maybe it's all of Google Slides gone down actually. I'm just posting another link. This is what I said before about having a backup slide ready. So we'll go back to the session 1 slide if that loads for us. I think it is. It's just being a bit slow on my screen. So if you could kindly post that again, Richard. Sorry, John. I can see a few people joining there. Thank you. Thank you for the patience with it. We're on slide 7 on this new link. Again, that's just gone through the chat. Hopefully this will stay good. And there's 3 links in here, and that's what we want to talk about here. So we've got the PowerPoint co-authoring, and that's what I was just alluding to there. We won't do the exercise there. I will show it on the screen though, so you can kind of see what I'm talking to. This took me about 1 minute to create this, by the way. So that's the kind of speed that you can generate these. That when you spend hours and hours on a slide deck, something like this, it might not look quite as slick, and it might look a little bit more haphazard at times, but bearing in mind we're getting the increased engagement out of it, maybe that's the reward for this approach. So you're very welcome to click on that first link, which is your usual extras, PowerPoint co-authoring on slide 7. And we can see there we've got the sailboat exercise. For those that haven't seen this, it's a way of kind of asking what's the good and the bad. So in this case, what's working in your meetings currently, what's not working in your meeting. So we've got the wind in the sails taking us forward, the things that are working, and we've got the, sorry if this is going the wrong direction, by the way, we've got the anchor holding us back, what's holding us back. So all I've done there is taken a picture, put a headline on it, and we've got some boxes with that are coloured in so that we can use those post-it exercises. As I say, it took me about a minute to do. All you need is one question, and you can see what that looks like as a tool and a technique, just using what you've already got. Everybody's either got Google Slides, which is what we're using here, or PowerPoint. You just need to put it onto OneDrive or in a shared area where everyone's got access. If you're in Teams, again, putting in that shared space, and again, everyone can just go in, open it up, and see that. So I won't do the exercise there because I'm going to introduce you to one of the other exercises, which is very, very similar, but you can see here. Feel free to take these, by the way. What you can do as a first exercise using the tools you've already got. Now the next one, the specials, this is us getting into the more fancy stuff. I think when I did a look, you can actually search for the top collaboration apps, and there's over 33 that I found the last time I looked, and there's way more than that. And that goes all the way from kind of Slack and Jira to things like this. So it's not just about the kind of whiteboarding tools, but yeah, there's lots of collaboration apps out there. So consider which one's best for what you're trying to do. And let's do that first exercise if you can in Mural, because I want to invite you all into that. I've got a license. Miro's, I think, better for free, for if you want to use it for free. I think you get 3 boards on that. But you can see here immediately, it's the exact same exercise. If you go on slide 7 on the specials, click in that Mural link and join us here, it's the same sailboat, it's the same question. So we're actually seeing that we've got Google Slides and this kind of more advanced tool doing the same thing. And that's what I want you to have a go at today. So let's do that first exercise together. It's normally easier, by the way, if you ever do this exercise, to do the problems. It's easier to come up with those than the things that are going well, funnily enough. But what's working and not working for you in your meetings currently? I'm interested to see you take a few post-its from the left-hand side of that slide and just put your comments in. What are the big pain points that you're facing at the minute? What are the things that are really working and going well? I'm going to go quiet for another 30 seconds to a minute. I'm a big fan of the sailboat exercise. It's just a really simple way to get a concept across. For those that haven't used Mural so much before, I did the post-its, and you can lock things to the screen, by the way, so that people don't move things around too much. One of the things that I do like about it, though, is if you use your mouse wheel to scroll out, or if you're on a phone or anything, you can just pinch your fingers using like a trackpad. But it allows you to have this viewpoint where you can have a whole concept of lots of ideas. You can do a massive mind map, and you can step away from it to kind of spot those themes and those big kind of connecting threads, or you can zoom in and you can start focusing on individual items. So as the name kind of alludes to, Mural, you can treat it as a giant wall that I can see everything, or I can step in and I can see an individual post-it note. And that's what I like about this, which, as I say, PowerPoint maybe doesn't have that kind of slick operation, but we just saw same tool, same technique, should I say, in 2 different tools. And in terms of what we're seeing about Zoom fatigue, hopefully we appreciate you spending your evening having a bit of a listen to us today, especially when you've probably had enough Zoom calls already. So thank you for that. And what we want to do is break that up. And so, am I right, NatWest, Paul? I think you shorten your meetings, don't you, to help prevent this?
Yeah, so depending on where you work, you can amend your Outlook administrator privileges and make the default setting for meetings either 25 minutes or 55 minutes. So, you know, it does make a difference. Arguably, what do you need 30 minutes for that you can't get done in 25? If you think about how most of your meetings run, are the first 3 minutes taken up with people moving late from the last meeting to your meeting? Does your meeting overrun? Is that because you've tried to put too much into the meeting but want it just to be half an hour? How many 1 hour meetings are you just padding and filling time? You know, I think the idea for saving those 5 minutes in NatWest really was to try to give people that Zoom fatigue break. Get out of your seat, go and make that cup of tea, go to the toilet, you know. And arguably, and this is very important, a lot of actions, catch-ups and insight in the physical world happens in the corridor before you go to a meeting, or just when your meeting's finished. That 5 minutes is critical for people just to have a sit and think about, what was that meeting about? What was I asked to do? How do I write that down so I don't forget it before I jump into my next meeting? So if you can have a think about the next time you're a host and you're setting a meeting, does it really need to be that full hour? Can you get it to 45 minutes? Can you get it to 25 minutes? It is powerful, and believe me, your audience will thank you for it so much that they will attend the next meeting just because they know they're going to get 5 minutes at the end to go and have a coffee. So very influential. As a top tip to everybody.
Yeah, give everyone that. And what you said there about the end of a meeting, I really like that. I think giving people that chance to connect and actually meet each other, you know, sometimes at the start of the meeting it can be a bit stinted and awkward, but at the end of the meeting you've got something to talk about a bit more. So allowing that extra time at the end of the meeting to connect can be really, really powerful for your teams. So think about that and how you might facilitate it. So I'm back on slide 7 again now in the slide deck. And the one in purple, have someone else pick for you. The idea here was, if you're in the moment in a meeting and you're just trying to get those ideas down, you're trying to show those minutes, whatever you're trying to do. So some of these applications are really good for the ad hoc in the moment type work. And so Jamboard, if you're a Google person, I think it's Whiteboard if you're on Teams and Microsoft, really, really powerful for just getting everybody in, asking the question verbally and getting those post-it notes up. As I said, we can do that in slides, but especially if you're in Teams and Google, you can just literally click on a button or two whilst you're in the meeting to open up that board and get people engaged. So if you're to click on that mind map and post-it exercise, I think it's a slightly different exercise I've done here. But again, what we can see is if we're a bit braver, then we can just open these sorts of tools up, have a bit of confidence, give it a go with a safe group of people that you know well, and just here we can see what's a great meeting experience to us. Again, like the persona exercise that we did before, what do we see, think, hear, feel, do in that great meeting experience? So you can kind of see that. I'm not going to do this exercise, by the way. What we're trying to point at here is different tools and techniques. We can apply the techniques in each of the tools. So whichever is most suitable, once again, for that situation in that moment. And the last recommendation is one that we can't say enough, having those silent moments, giving people a chance to reflect. If you ask a question of people, say to people, I want you to think about this for a minute before you come back to me with a response. That's a really nice thing to do, to give people, especially the reflectors amongst the audience, a chance to think. And even for the more outspoken ones, it makes sure they formulate their thoughts rather than jumping in. So that last one as an exercise, really thinking about it. What are you thinking there, Paul?
I kind of take that one step further. You know, if you pre-position the question that you're after insight or an opinion or information from somebody in service, somebody in technology, somebody in the front line, somebody in back office, actually say to people, and I ask you this question, and then we're going to take a moment to have a think about it, and I'm coming to Paul next for the answer. So what I know it sounds harsh, but you will find in meetings that the same people continually jump in first, and then there are certain types of people that build on what they've said, and then there are certain types of people who really just say what the other person said but in different words. And you need to, those styles are that style of how that person is thinking and their thought process in their head. So if you say, so I'm going to come to Paul, and then straight after Martin, I'd like you to build on that. You are giving people that role. You are saying to people, here's the chance for you to come and contribute. Especially, you know, we talked about people being alienated and not getting a chance to speak. It's a way to bring that audience in and get them engaged. Hugely beneficial if you think you're only getting one side of an opinion or an argument, and you want to get a more rounded view of the risk or the status of how the project's going, or the daily stand-up problems that are happening, whatever the meeting is that's going in for. You don't just want a one-sided view. So very topical and a very easy approach to bring to any meeting. You don't have to be the host.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. I would say don't go to your apprentices and graduates and pick on them first. make sure the people who have a bit of confidence in the prime. But yeah, I like this. I definitely like this idea of giving people a chance to speak and have their ideas first. So with that said, we've got a few exercises on the right hand side. So we've seen the tools and techniques. Now we've got a few ideas. Now 1, 2, 4 all. The idea of that is exactly like we said, get somebody thinking individually, and this is great for breakout rooms. If you've got a larger audience, and especially if they don't know each other, this is really good. So you need a bit of a time window for this one, 20-30 minutes minimum, but you start off by saying, okay, individually think about a response to my first question. You know, what are the pain points in your meetings? You've got 1 minute to think about the pain points in your meetings, why they're going wrong. Get people to come back. And then we put people in pairs, again, breakout rooms, get them in pairs. So, you know, what can you do to get rid of those challenges? So we follow that with the next question in pairs. And then we do it as a group of 4. And then we bring everyone together. In between each of those, of course, you can get everyone to recap and share their insights and things. But what this is really good for is stopping groupthink, stopping those larger voices from taking over. So 1, 2, 4 all is a way of doing one person, do it in a pair, do it in a group of 4, bring everyone together, and basically we're solving a problem or coming together with some ideas and questions and thoughts. So a big fan of that one. The 6 hat model hopefully is familiar to a few of you. I'm a big fan with this of asking a specific type of question. And one of my favorites is how might we? Another one is what are the kind of blockers? But if we put how might we in front of most challenges, it becomes a kind of ideation exercise. We're making everybody take on that, the innovator hat or the ideator hat. So asking one question can put you into the 6 hat model. Obviously, you can follow that directly as well. And something that I probably don't talk to enough of is the 1 minute story. So a story is generally it's what a plot, a setting, and then the characters. Three components. So rather than having the data and the evidence and saying, well, this tells us, you know, that if we follow this route, then we get this result. Make it real. Talk about an individual person, and then talk about the problem they face, how this helps them overcome it, overlay that into a setting and make sure there's a backstory to it. An example of that I'm thinking of is, you know, I'm looking at a business case and I'm trying to figure out, I don't know, how do I make an application form easier for a customer? So all of a sudden I want to make it real, and what I would do for the story is say, right, we've got our customer, Jane, at home. Jane's got a couple of kids, the dog, and a family all around the dinner table, and they're all kind of shouting. She just wants to do this application form. You can imagine the distractions that are going on, and then all of a sudden on a phone, all these notifications are coming up and everything's going on. We've got the setting, you know, you've got the family around the dinner table, we've got the everything going on there. We've got the person we can hopefully identify with, and we've got the challenge. They're trying to do the application form, but they just can't as the distraction. What we want to do is make it autofill for them. so that when they click one button, everything on the form is done for them, and then they can go back to the family. How good would that be that all you had to do was click one button, and rather than typing everything out? So that 1 minute story, it's about plot, character, kind of who's involved, in the setting, and just trying to find a way through it. I mean, that was off the cuff, so it was probably a bit to and fro in it, but you get the idea. You get the idea of kind of turning it from, if we add this form in that autofills, then people will be through in 30 seconds, and it will save them time and they can do whatever, or we can convert it into the story. So try the 1 minute story just on your own, having a go at thinking about the plot, the setting, and the kind of conflict, the individuals, how they're going to get through that, how it's going to help them, and that should help with a few techniques for getting people to think of new ideas. So that's it. We've got 1, 2, 4, 6 hat model, 1 minute story there. We've seen the tools and techniques, and there's some links there. Feel free to have a look at those. If in all of this it's a bit overwhelming and you think it's not for me, the one thing I would say is have a look at Avoiding Death by PowerPoint on YouTube by, I think it's David J.P. Phillips. The one, at least that'll kind of get you thinking about the design of your slide deck. If you're still going to do the show and tell style of slides and presentations, then at least have a go at that. Just spend 20 minutes an hour watching that and taking on board what he says, because the least you can do is give people's eyes a rest in your slide decks, and that's what he talks about. How do you get the design right so that people aren't exhausted looking at your slides? They're not looking at 50 words and not, kind of getting a bit tired by it. So if in all of this you're thinking maybe not for me, have a look at Avoid Death by PowerPoint. Otherwise, take it as complimentary, and hopefully you've got some other ideas. And then Liberating Structures and Tasty Cupcakes, they are both very similar. And they're just lots of exercises for you to try out, so have a nosy. If you're looking at those, think about the outcome you're trying to achieve before you go to those sites, because there's too many ideas to look at once. So think about the outcome you're trying to achieve, and then look at the exercises and find the fit. So that's hopefully lots and lots of different tools and techniques and exercises for you to take away. Before we go on to, I think we're about the end of time now, so we won't do a reflection on that, but just as an entire, we've looked at the slide decks, the co-authoring, we've looked at the silence and how to get people present at the start of the meeting. We saw a bit about the meeting going wrong, what the signs, and then how to react and manage that before, during, and after the meeting. Here we've seen 3 or 4 tools there. We've seen PowerPoint, Mural, as well as the kind of mind map. As tools that we can use, and then lots of techniques. We saw the 3 techniques I've just gone through, as well as the actual kind of sailboat exercise. Paul said about kind of shortening meetings, how we can kind of maybe ask people directly to get them engaged. So lots and lots of different things there to think about. Which one of those are you going to give a go to in your next meeting? And try it as an attendee as well. You don't just have to be the host to try these things. You can try and find your way in by asking questions. So which one of those things might you try out? So before I go and finish up there, Paul, have you got any last thoughts?
I'm just looking at what people put in for what they were looking from. Tips on engagement, yet more tips this week. If you want to look at the last week's session, there are tons of tips on that one as well. Martin's shown the screen. That YouTube is all linked through LinkedIn. More around using silence. I don't think it's used enough to give people a time for catching up. Martin went through a lot of the tooling help and some interesting exercises. So I think the people got what they were looking for from this session.
Yeah, fingers crossed, eh? Yeah, so and do give that feedback and let us know what you're thinking. So I said before about the links and things. There's our site has a few insights on it. We've got the playbook, the remote engagement playbook. Have a nosy at that and see. You can download these slides and see what you think to those. There's lots of info there. You don't even need to sign up, by the way. No email address. Just give it a go and take it home for yourself to try and improve those meetings. If you like what you see, connect with us on LinkedIn. And we're very happy to kind of introduce a few of these ideas, share a bit more. We love hearing about how it's worked out for you, and that one idea, did it work or not? That's something that's really kind of powerful for us, and it helps us tailor what we do in the future as well too. So with that, we'll give you your evening back. Thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully you got plenty of insights. I'll hand back over to John there to close us out. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The absolutely packed with practical techniques that we can all take away and use tomorrow. So thank you, Martin. Thank you, Paul. Again, a fascinating session. Even more able now to enable remote engagement in the online meetings that we're all going to have to get to grips with probably forevermore. We'll share the recording of this session in the next day or two. In the meantime, you will see, as last time, a satisfaction survey when you close your browser, and again in an hour's time by email. Even if you completed this last time, do please take a moment to complete it again. It's always incredibly helpful to hear how the session has gone and what you thought of it and how it can be improved. So I hope you've enjoyed the session. Thank you for being here again. Thank you again very much indeed to our speakers, Martin Simmons and Paul Hickman, and goodbye.
Thanks, everybody.